And I think in some ways, when you look at gay porn of the 90s, it seems very quaint now. Like everything was so above board. I mean, you had to get documents from people, and then there were like scripts and people like on sets. And I loved being able to show that, because now I actually think porn is in a more scary place with the internet. We don't know, someone's phone could just be handed to somebody. People's ages are all over the place. But like back then, they were making every effort because it was so regulated.
Welcome to In the Booth. I'm your host, Vince Winik, and today I have Rachel Mason and Dion Labriola from My Brother's Killer. All right, give us the rundown on y'all's film.
My Brother's Killer tells the story of a brutal murder that happened in 1990 in Los Angeles. Billy, a gay man, was murdered on the streets of Hollywood, on the edge of West Hollywood, the gay community. And for 33 years, it went unsolved until this effort happened when I was making this film. A number of people from the community came together and over a period of about 6 years solved the murder.
I began to fill in the picture of who Billy Newton was. That there was a lot of family tragedy. There was a lot of mental illness and substance use and poverty. All of these elements shaped Billy.
How long did you work on My Brother's Killer?
I would say I learned about the murder in 2019. That was the actual year that I met Mickey Ski, who's the guy that I wanted to meet because he happened to be sort of like a gay porn historian, a de facto historian, because he knew all these gay adult video models. And in a way, the gay community at that time was underground. It was an underground culture. Also, I'm doing all the talking, as always.
We've got questions for Dion too.
But she
he
knows
lived it.
Mickey. She they're friends. He started as a gay porn critic.
Yeah.
So
They have
that's
those.
how he got into that world and knows so much about it. So he has this vast
Incredible.
archive.
Yeah. He has kept everything. And in making the film, you get to a point where you really need to like get to sections where you have to fill in the blanks almost and
Totally.
visually. So one of the things that always bothered me and still does about porn in general and gay porn in particular is that it's really easy to make somebody like a two-dimensional, like, okay, that's how they look on a cover of a magazine or on a DVD or on a box cover, and not have any other feelings for them, like, oh, this guy's really hot. That's all anyone thinks about. Oh, that person's really hot, sexy.
Yeah.
But could we find portraits of them that felt more like, this guy could be my friend, he's my neighbor, or just a regular person? And so Mickey, I was told, had a trove of photos. And when I met him, he was so gracious. He was like, he was really happy to help. And he had this giant binder and he was flipping through it. And this article that he had written with a guy named Chris Bull in The Advocate just sort of appeared. And I was like, wait, what was that article?
The headline is, "Cops have no clue in grisly death of porn actor."
And y'all show it, y'all hold it up in the documentary.
Yeah.
And you said, oh my God, what is this? I need to know more about this.
And it all kind of started with AIDS, really, because AIDS was such a omnipresent, huge part of the gay experience in that time. And yet it also was this thriving, I mean, really, like when you see like the gay porn award show in our, like, I got to experience this thriving, exciting, fun culture from a child's point of view. Like, I just remember like, oh my God, these guys are so much fun. They were hilarious and funny. And there's like, that guy died and that guy, and all these people are dying. So when I got older, I was like, God, those guys died when they were like, they were like so young. And you're like, how did that many people die?
Difficult stories like this about AIDS in the gay community can be very cathartic for that community, but also revealing for so many people that don't, just have no experience with any of the parts of this story,
Well, that's the thing too, is like there's so many stories. I mean, I have a tiny, teeny window on the gay adult video industry within the gay community. I mean, there's, ice skating, there's a whole world, there's all these incredible other stories. And I think because that generation died. Really, like it was wiped out. You have a handful of people alive. I mean, I know there's more than a handful, but like that's why I truly like Dion is of that generation who survived, and I really feel strongly like I wound up in a place where I could help champion some small piece of that history, and it feels like an obligation because I love all these guys. They are my brothers, and that's why the film was called My Brother's Killer. Billy wasn't my actual brother, but I have a gay brother, and
These
Billy,
are your brothers. In a
yeah.
way, yeah.
I mean, by the time I finished the film, I was like, I got to know Billy's sisters. I care about them. Interestingly, I also know Daryl Lynn's family too, the killer. So my brother's killer, like, there's people on all sides that are real human beings, you know.
Yeah, it's an intensely human story. So speaking of Daryl Lynn, when you started this, and then as you got deeper and deeper into it, prior to, I suppose, starting to speak with Clark Williams, the detective
The
of
hero.
the century.
Yeah, one of the many
Were you
great
thinking
heroes.
like what would be the ending, or were you just sort of like plugging away at it and because this is such a rare thing, true crime that gets solved, right? Like it's like the dream come true of a true crime piece.
No, Clark, when I met him, he just was offered an avenue to understanding the Midwest, the northern Wisconsin.
And like you said, a pocket of gay
Yeah.
people that, I'm sure had it.
Oh,
Damn, being gay in Wisconsin, I can't
In
imagine.
northern
Northern,
Wisconsin.
I mean, which isn't even Madison or Milwaukee.
Way up there.
The very worst thing you could ever be growing up in northern Wisconsin was to be gay. So you tried to hide that part of yourself as much as you possibly could.
And I'll never forget his email was, "I'm from Eau Claire." And I thought, wow, oh my God. And, I was so moved by what he wrote in his very first email to me, which just offered, this idea that he could help give me a portrait of Billy. And that was a missing link because, I only knew the LA version. I knew pieces of Billy's story, but I was trying to, and it was hard to figure out how to communicate with Billy's family and if they even would want to. So to have him as a gay man of the exact same age, it was so poignant and exactly what I wanted. Just nothing else, with no ambition to solving it with Clark.
Because the original intent of the film was to do a portrait about Billy, about the case.
Yeah.
To see, once the documentary went wherever it went,
Yeah.
maybe somebody out there in TV land would see it and be like, oh, I know something, and come forward at that point.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
Like the goal would be to solve it eventually if we could, because the film had a role in solving it because, somebody, exactly.
Of course,
somebody
you're bringing a
watched
lot to light.
Right.
But yeah, Clark was a great vehicle and very great instinct to like bring that sort of like portrait of him through someone else and bringing a lot of understanding, because it does help you really understand like somebody from Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, coming out to LA in the 80s.
Well, and I could have never imagined the type of research Clark was even capable of when I got his
He's like
email.
an ace.
Oh my God, I didn't know. And then I had befriended John Lamberti, and John only was willing to talk to me because of my connection to the store, and he understood that I had a real heart in it and that I wanted to help the investigation. So he was providing me with stuff which I would share with Clark. And Clark would run with it in ways that were unfathomable. And yet, if we're not giving too much of a spoiler away, it was really because Clark intersected back with somebody in the heart of the gay adult video community, Kevin Clark, because he was talking to everybody, that Kevin was there to say, wait a minute, this person who has been here almost like hiding in plain sight in the police case file has all the information if you just do this and this and look at these things. That still made Clark have to do tons of research into the new lead. But Kevin ripped open that new lead for Clark.
This story has a darkness to it because it's a murder and a gruesome one at that. And then it's also, there's a darkness in the sense of people revealing themselves or stepping out of their comfort zone when they're trying to protect their community, protect what's considered offensive to those in America. And and they don't want to get hurt.
You know, it's an uncomfortable truth to, you know, when you repress a certain thing or when an industry exists in the shadows.
Yeah.
People who work in illegal adjacent industries also have to find ways to just survive and make a living.
Our slogan is, an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. This is a coronation warning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There's this part of the story that it feels like is existing in the darkness, but as time has gone on, obviously gayness and gay culture has become much more mainstream and much more accepted. And do you think that helped you in revealing this story?
Absolutely. And I think in some ways, when you look at gay porn of the 90s, it seems very quaint now. Like everything was so above board. I mean, you had to get documents from people, and then there were like scripts and people like on sets. And I loved being able to show that, because now I actually think porn is in a more scary place with the internet. We don't know. Someone's phone could just be handed to somebody. People's ages are all over the place. We don't know the situation. I mean, granted, there's always questions that surround porn in general, but like back then, they were making every effort because it was so regulated. You really had
There's
to be.
barriers to entry and
Yeah.
So there's so many storytelling decisions that go into editing a documentary, Dion. And what did you find in the process of editing this film? It was well edited in the sense that everything just sort of comes together. But I know that sometimes when you're making it, it doesn't necessarily roll that way.
You'll obviously know, it's like a giant puzzle that you have to figure out. I think first for me was just getting the basics of the story in there so that people could follow along, because I knew going in it's so complicated, because it's not just a movie about the case, it's more a movie about the movie about the case. You know, it's this weird...
you start to break the fourth wall.
Right.
You're using elements of like archive, interview, and recreation at times, I think, right?
The recreation word
not
is kind of
really.
weird.
Yeah.
Well, we used...
Well, we didn't. I would say this: we did not make any recreations
Okay.
No, we
at
didn't.
all.
But the thing we did,
Yeah.
we used clips from old pornos to
Exactly.
kind of represent
Yes.
Vibes.
certain things that happen in the film.
Exactly.
Like there's a shot where Ron Wheeler is talking about watching TV in the 90s
Right.
when he first saw Jeffrey Dahmer, and we use a clip from an old porno of a guy sitting down watching TV.
And who's that porno actor's name?
Anthony Cox.
So that's the other thing, is that we wanted to pay tribute in the end to the people that we featured as those people, because, you know, many of them died. Mm-hmm. So it really worked out that we could find, and there's so much to choose from. You could find a guy who was blonde, or a guy that might look like Ron Wheeler, and
It plays well, and it
yeah.
feels authentic, and it enriches the story.
well, that was our goal, was that
And luckily, I mean, Billy Newton himself was only in a couple movies, but we had enough of just Billy, so we could use a lot of him, actual footage instead of... We also had hundreds of photographs, but luckily we could use a lot of actual footage.
yeah.
So I read that you DJ'd at a bar in Chicago, and you're from Ohio.
I'm from Ohio originally. I moved to Chicago in the 80s. I worked at a club called Berlin that was kind of legendary. It was open for 40 years. It just closed like 2 years ago.
And you're the same age as Billy.
I am, yeah.
And so did you feel a deep connection to sort of like the origin of Billy?
Well, you feel a connection with every gay person, like it's a brotherhood to begin with, but then there's on top of it, same era, I was from the Midwest, and I remember hearing about the case when it happened. You know, I was working in a nightclub, so I knew about it, and I knew just when it happened what a horrible feeling it was, because it was right in the height of the AIDS epidemic, and all these guys were dying, and then to have somebody murdered on top of that, it's like, oh, come on, how much more can we take?
it almost adds this like confusion because you're, I think, hardened over from all these men passing away and all the confusion in the midst of the epidemic. I don't think that anybody can really. It's hard to actually comprehend now. I think people have really moved on from it.
I will say one thing, though, is that Chris Bull actually recently interviewed me in The Advocate, and he's the same guy who was the first person with Mickey Ski to write that article. And he said there was, and this is the key, there was also an epidemic of crime.
That too.
And that's what Billy represents, that we don't know enough about because those crimes were underreported. But with all of that AIDS epidemic happening, when he used the word epidemic of crime, and I, having spoken to Daryl Lynn about how gay bashing was the goal, gay murder was the goal. We need to kill a gay guy. And they were absolutely going after gay people.
Gay people didn't trust police to solve crimes. So we all dressed up and we patrolled the streets. There were a few guys from the gym, they were buffed, and we wore these leather jackets and massive fucking chains around our neck. They're like 20 pounds of toe chain. And we come in with sunglasses and black pants, black leather jackets. We look really fucking intimidating.
I don't know if AIDS was so huge it overshadowed the violence epidemic, but
LA was dangerous at that time. Yeah. Big cities were dangerous, and even
it's weird. This is this awful cycle because the AIDS epidemic kind of created more homophobia.
Right.
Because before AIDS, like in the late 70s, it was becoming, there were gay movies, and then AIDS hit and just everything went off the rails.
Well, and it was also used by the Christian right to say, well, this is obviously God's curse.
Yeah, it was not a good, like Chris Rice says in one of the podcasts, I can't think of a worse time to try to investigate a murder than the 90s, because it was
because they were already hating on the gay community for being, quote, like blaming them, being responsible for AIDS,
Exactly.
If a straight man got AIDS, it would literally be as if they were gay. You would say, you're gay, you got AIDS.
It was God's punishment.
Yeah. So, like I told y'all, my father also died of AIDS, and
how old was he?
37.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm 35. So I'm coming up on that age, and me and my brother were just talking about that. I was like, it's so much to miss. But I guess essentially it's like you had AIDS, you had homophobes trying to murder gay people. This was a very dangerous time, and I think that it's the film does a great job of showing that, and also showing, how far we've come. And I think that that's a really important piece of this film. So Clark Williams busts this open kind of, right? And you realize that you're going to be able to, I think, solve it. And I was curious, like, how long were you corresponding with Daryl Lynn before even maybe setting up the interview, going into the prison? That's a huge moment in the film, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're going into the prison, and it's exciting, it's a huge exciting moment.
Well, Dion was with me.
Yeah, we both were there.
Yeah, I didn't want to go without
She didn't want to go alone, and I didn't want her to go alone.
Yeah. It almost didn't happen even, because at the end, Daryl Lynn didn't want to come out, and there were lots of reasons for that. And, as a documentary filmmaker, you're often on this media side of things. You're like, I just really need to get this, I got to get this interview. Like, it has to be done. And you're like, wait a minute, this is also this person's lived experience. They have got to do this thing. And that alone colors everything.
Yeah. And before she went into that, because when Rachel started communicating with Daryl Lynn, she was in a different prison.
Yeah.
Daryl Lynn was in a different prison.
She was transferred
and
there.
We had always thought we would be able to get an interview with her, with Daryl Lynn, and then they transferred Daryl Lynn to this Max.
Yeah.
Like
an underground Max.
For a while, I just assumed we wouldn't get an interview.
Yeah, me too.
And then you reached out to the media relations people, and they were really
helpful.
They were like, yes, we want to do it. So it was this back and forth. It's like, oh, it's going to happen. Oh, it's not.
Well, and to your question of how long I was communicating,
it was a long time.
I was writing letters to Daryl Lynn for 2 years. So I have 2 years worth of correspondence, video calls, and actual letters.
In that 2 years, at this point, you're communicating with Daryl Lynn, and you have the confession.
Well,
because the confession happened pretty quickly.
Yeah. The confession happened
more quickly than anyone anticipated.
Yeah, John got the confession, but police also don't have that much time to get all those details and answers. And not just me, but Billy's family wanted answers. His sisters wanted answers. And I started to feel a sense that I had an obligation to them because they had trusted me with just their own memories and correspondence. And, we had a lot of conversations. Billy's sister, Michelle, who's in our film, and knowing that she wanted answers, knowing that I myself wanted answers, and knowing the community would want answers. Like, what really happened? Just because you killed him, like, why exactly did you kill him? Like, why? And to know that this was a targeted murder of a gay man, it felt like, well, Billy could have been anyone. I mean, Dion could have been walking down the street in that day at the wrong time. That's a whole different kind of scenario than what was playing out for years when we were thinking about this murder. Everyone assumed it was,
Somebody
personal.
close, personal. Yeah, that's usually.
I mean,
the
that's
case.
why
Right.
Mark Rabins wanted answers. In fact, in the film, he said to me, I wish I was there with you.
Like, it's closed as a case, but the community still wanted closure. They still wanted to understand Daryl Lynn, and Daryl Lynn. I don't know if we'll ever fully understand Daryl Lynn. Daryl Lynn's
Not possible.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
troubled person. But,
Right. But we could still solve more murders. That's what I think. From talking to Daryl Lynn, not just solving more murders, more crimes, and have a deeper understanding of what really did happen. I mean, even like to tell Billy's sister, like, what were Billy's final words? I had to ask Daryl Lynn that multiple times, like, what was Billy saying? Like, and it's a horrifying thing to think of Billy's final images, but I've noticed that that's what people want.
Just having answers, whatever they are, were better than the 30 years of just like imagining all the other scenarios
Yeah.
and
It
just
was
not knowing.
So nice. I love the moment for Billy's boyfriend. That was-
Mark, yeah.
Yeah, Mark,
yeah.
exactly. That was so nice.
Yeah.
It changed.
It changed his life.
He said it
his
took
life.
this weight off his
Yeah,
whole life
yeah.
for the last 30 years. So with all that said, we love the film. What's the next project? Are you going to keep operating inside of this world? Are y'all going to keep collaborating? What's next?
Well, yeah, hopefully we'll keep collaborating. And also, there are more stories to be found within this story. Sadly, it's not a great thing, but knowing what I know about things Daryl Lynn has endured, and also Daryl Lynn's family, there's another side there that I've learned, which is not covered in our film well, because we didn't get there in time. You only get so far, and then you think, okay, well, put the lid on it. This person must have had a terrible childhood. Well, then you realize, well, actually, that person's family was struggling with what Daryl Lynn was going through, and it wasn't as simple as like, let's kick him out of the house as a child. There's a lot of trauma there for the family as well, and it's not as simple as that. And so learning those stories has been very interesting. But I have other projects bubbling up on the different levels, but nothing immediate that I can talk about. But
That's okay.
So
It's really great to have y'all both in the booth today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Totally. Yeah.
Thanks, y'all. That was really fun.